nervous systems. Do you finish your anatomy for nervous systems right now? For this semester, if you are not be anatomy class before?
No, not yet.
Yeah, you are still in the like a bone muscle, right?
We just finished the bones, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we also do some, we need to also do some anatomy, otherwise you don't know what I'm talking about. So nervous systems separate mainly two parts. We say central nervous systems. We short name CNS. And the peripheral nervous systems. We still short name PNS. What that means? Generally speaking, the nervous systems protected by the bone, like a scapula, like vertebrae, inside of the bone. We call it central nervous system. Certainly, the functionally is more important also. But that's the way we are easily remember. Yeah, we are easily remember. So like the picture here, that's our brain protected by the scapular bone, and that's our vertebrae protected by, that's our spinal cord protected by the vertebrae. So basically this picture, they put two longer here. It will be ending on the middle part here. So that's basically, yeah, that's basically, we're talking about the CNS. Then PNS, yeah, peripheral nervous system. Everything coming out from the brain, from the spinal cord. That's our PNS. So that's basically go to the arms, go to the legs, everywhere. Yeah, everywhere. Neck, face. Some bunch directly coming out from the brain. Some bunch directly coming out from the spinal cord. But whatever they call PNS. So that's the big chart here. Yeah, big chart here. Our nervous system separate. One is CNS, second one is PNS. CNS easy understanding, just the brain and the spinal cord, all protection by the bone. PNS part, yeah, PNS part. We're talking about the nerve bunch called PNS, but they possible directly coming out from the brain or connected with the brain directly. We call it cranial nerves. Cranial nerves totally we have 12 pairs. If it directly connected with spinal cord, we call it spinal nerves. That's totally 31 pairs. So we still go back the picture for nervous systems here. So in this picture, mainly show us all coming from the spinal cord here. But truly some nerve bunch directly coming out from the brain. Yeah, we're talking about some detail later. So that's 21 pair directly coming out from our brain, and totally here 31 pair. It will be go to all over the body. Certainly 12 pericranial nerves mainly go to the head. Certainly, something go down to internal organs. We talk about some detail later. But that's just the general pictures here. Thus, by the location, we separate nervous systems with two parts, CNS and PI. But by the functions, we say by nervous functions, we still can separate with another two parts. So some nervous bunch, they perform function like a sensory. What means sensory? Feeling, feeling. Feeling something, feeling something. Like when we touching of our skin, we can feel something, some people touching. Or even I put the heat here or cold here, can feel something. That part function belong to sensory. And another function, nervous systems, control the movement. We say muscle can contraction, but who control it? Nervous system. So control the movement, mainly for the skeletal muscle. That part we talking about, that's motory. Motory. So sensory part and the motor part both located in the CNS and the PIs. So we still go back the picture here. So certainly, if we need to feel something on the hand here, the nervous impulse or information will follow the bunch, go in to the spinal cord here first. So this part belong to PNS. But if you feel something, it not only stop here. Truly, need to send the information go to inside our brain, and then you can feel it. So that's go to spinal cord part and to the brain part. That's belong to CNS. For example, if I'm touching a hot bottle here and it's too hot, I need immediately to move out my fingers. So that part belong to motory. So motory, what they doing? So our brain receive the information from sensory, and then they say, oh, that's too hot. I need to move away my fingers. So that's the motory part will go down. And then, motory part go down and then go out of the spinal cord and then to my hand. That's pass the route from the brain, go to the fingers, and then I can move in my fingers. So still part inside of spinal cord and the brain that still belong to CNS, and the outer part still belong to PNS. But functionally, it's a feeling function, transmission the information from the terminal to the brain, that belong to sensory. If transfer the information from the brain to the terminal, control the muscle movement, thus belong to motor. So thus we say both sensory and motory will be located in the CNS and the PI. It's clear here?
So basically, these are two different systems that are connected.
Yes, yeah. Functionally, we have two systems, but locationally, they are connected to each other. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so that's the basic anatomy here. And then we talking about our brain. Yeah, then we talking about our brain. So our brain separate with three big parts, still by their location. Certainly the function is more complicated. So the big part of our brain we call cerebrum. So that's located the big part here. Together we call it cerebrum. That's big part, the big part of our brain. And then we have another small part, cerebellum. So like that's number 1, that's number 2. The second part is much smaller, right in this part. And our third part of our brain, yeah, third part of our brain, we call it brainstem. Brainstem is on the center. We must be cut half. Yeah, we cut half and looking from the center, then we can find the brainstem. So that's basically that belong to brainstem. Remember, brainstem holding the center. So we still can see that's mainly big part, cerebrum here, and that's a small part, cerebellum here, and the brainstem holding in the center. So that still belong to your anatomy. And then, like each of the part, yeah, each of the part, especially the bigger part, we separate to left side and the right side, like a bowl cutting half. Certainly they connected each other, but from superficially, each of the half, they cover 4 lobes. The name are exactly the same when you learn the bone. You have frontal bone, parietal bone, temporal bone, or occipital bone. So that's cover the same area with your bones. We just call it a lobe. Yeah, we just call it a lobe. So same location, frontal bone, we call frontal lobe. And the same location with your parietal bone, we call it parietal lobe. And the same location with occipital bone is occipital lobe here. And the same location with your temple bone is your temple lobe. So that's easily to remember. And certainly both sides. Yeah. Here is the right side. Go to left side, still have 4 lobes, exactly the same. So that's for the cerebrum part, big part. The small part, we are not necessary to separate the different part or lobes. But brainstem, yeah, brainstem, truly, we still separate with 4 different parts. Different book, they may separate a little bit difference, but we just follow this book. Yeah, follow this book. We separate with 4 parts. From upper go down. That's the order here. More upper part, we call it a thymus. We still go to this picture. More upper part, thymus. Basically, yeah. So different book, different idea. Some book including this part. Some book maybe just including this part. But whatever, upper part we call thymus. Then go down, connected with thymus. Basically this part. We call it a middle brain. And connected with middle brain is pulse, this part. And connected with the pulse part, we call it medulla oblongata, this part. And downwards, medulla oblongata directly connected with the spinal cord here. So that's the spinal cord. So that's our brainstem, located in the center of the brain. So that's a different part of the brain. Connected thymus part, hypo, remember that's medical words, is lower. Just below the thymus, we call hyperthymus. So hyperthymus still have a different idea. Some doctors say it belongs to nervous systems. Some doctors say it belongs to endocrine systems. We're just living here. Yeah. And truly connected with the hyperthymus, we have a special gland. We call it pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is belong to endocrine system. So we just put in here to see how close relationship, like anatomy location, endocrine system with the nervous systems, and certainly functionally, they are more close relationship with each other also. So that's basically your anatomy part. Then, like we talked about before, we say we have sensory nervous. Yeah. Sensory nervous, generally say it's a feeling function. It's a transmission the information from the body superficial. That part we call it receptors, and to the CNS. And certainly they will passing through the spinal cord under the brain. Another mainly function of nervous system is motor nervous. Motor nervous is transmission the information from the seeing eyes to the muscles or other structure in the superficial of the body. Do some reactions to the stimulation. So that's two mainly functions of the nervous system. So nerves still passing the spinal cord and the brain, and then they can go to the muscle and some gland. So if we put it together for this chart, put it together, we say functionally, we have sensory functions, means feeling functions, feeling functions, mainly in the external, like our hand, feeling the touching, feeling the needles, feeling cold, feeling the movement. And internally, we still have sensory function, like feeling the blood pressure changing, and feeling the body temperature changing, and feeling some sugars, blood sugars changing. So a lot of things we can feel it. And then through the negative feedback systems, we talked about negative feedback system before, and then maintenance internal environment balance. That's the words we use for homeostasis. So that's sensory systems functions. All the information sending from sensory will go to seeing eyes or brain. In that part, they do more working, analysis, and story means memory, and also make some decisions and make some behaviors, so something like that. So that's more higher part of our brain's functions. Put everything together, put everything together, and then remember everything. And then we'll sending reactions. So that kind of reaction may be immediately, maybe keep a longer time, then send the information to the motor function. What means motor function? Control, control the muscles movement, control the gas secretion. So that's together form of our whole nervous systems and the whole functions in there. So still a little bit detail about our picture of our nervous systems. We go to a little bit more detail about the PNS, peripheral nervous system part. Peripheral nervous systems, we say we have 12 pairs directly connected with the brain. That 12 pair we call 12 pair cranial nerves. And another 31 pair directly connected with the spinal nerves, spinal cord. That's we call spinal nerves. So that's totally form our PNS part. Certainly, we say both CNS and PNS, they have sensory, they have motor. Sensory is the feeling part, let it be easily, yeah, feeling. They can feel superficial bodies changing or internally changing, both. But generally say, they are let it be easily, external and internal changing. But motor part, let it be complicated. Yeah, motor part, let it be complicated. So we put the motor part, go to more detail here. So motor part of the PNS, yeah, motor part of the PNS, including two big parts. One big part, they directly control skeletal muscles, like we moving our hand or limbs. That part we name it somatic. Somatic just means the body, yeah, systems, nervous systems. Yeah, somatic nervous systems. If they control the skeletal muscles. And the other part control internal organs. Internal organs mainly formed by smooth muscle and the cardiac muscle. So we say smooth muscle here, like a bigger category will cover the hard muscles. Generally, these kind of muscles is involuntary control. Like you couldn't control your stomach when they contracted, when they help you digestion. You couldn't control your heart, like when you like it beating there, or when you try to stop. So involuntary kind of control that belong to smooth muscle, big category, including the heart. But some books separate to say cardiac muscle. And also, they will control the grass secretion. Like some digestion juice, they will secretion. And also like our skin, sweating grass secretion. So something like that, yeah. So still involuntary kind of control. Yeah, no people truly can control it. So that's we say motor part of PNS separate with two parts. One is control skeletal muscles we call somatic nervous system. One is control smooth muscles and grass we call automatically nervous system or ANS. So skeletal muscles control still easily, directly control skeletal muscles. Control internal organs more complicated. Grass and smooth muscles. So basically in this part, our nervous systems still have two different bunch. Yeah, two different bunch. One bunch we call it sympathetic nervous. Another bunch we call parasympathetic nervous. Pretty similar like a pair. Yeah, pretty similar like a pair. So these nerves control the organs They helping each other and control each other. Like one race make the heart rate increase, another one will control it decrease. So keep internal environments balanced. That's mainly for all organs. So two bunch here. So that's the basic picture of our nervous systems. So now we're moving to our video. Still some basic information about the nervous system.
Nervous system. In biology, the nervous system is a highly complex part of an animal that coordinates its actions and sensory information by transmitting signals to and from different parts of its body. The nervous system detects environmental changes that impact the body, then works in tandem with the endocrine system to respond to such events. In vertebrates, it consists of two main parts: the central nervous system, CNS, and the peripheral nervous system, PNs. The CNS consists of the brain and spinal cord. The PNs consists mainly of nerves, which are enclosed bundles of the long fibers or axons that connect the CNS to every other part of the body. Nerves that transmit signals from the brain are called motor or efferent nerves, while those nerves that transmit information from the body to the CNS are called sensory or afferent. Spinal nerves serve both functions and are called mixed nerves. Nerves that exit from the cranium are called cranial nerves, while those exiting from the spinal cord are called spinal nerves. The PNs is divided into two separate subsystems, the somatic and autonomic nervous systems. Somatic nerves mediate voluntary movement. The autonomic nervous system is further subdivided into the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. The sympathetic nervous system is activated in cases of emergencies to mobilize energy, while the parasympathetic nervous system is activated when organisms are in a relaxed state. At the cellular level, the nervous system is defined by the presence of a special type of cell, called the neuron, also known as a nerve cell. Neurons have special structures that allow them to send signals rapidly and precisely to other cells. They send these signals in the form of electrochemical waves traveling along thin fibers called axons, which cause chemicals called neurotransmitters to be released at junctions called synapses. A cell that receives a synaptic signal from a neuron may be excited, inhibited, or otherwise modulated. The connections between neurons can form neural pathways, neural circuits, and larger networks that generate an organism's perception of the world and determine its behavior. Along with neurons, the nervous system contains other specialized cells called glial cells, or simply glia, which provide structural and metabolic support. The central nervous system functions to send signals from one cell to others, or from one part of the body to others, and to receive feedback. Malfunction of the nervous system can occur as a result of genetic defects, physical damage due to trauma or toxicity, infection, or simply of aging. The medical specialty of neurology studies disorders of the nervous system and looks for interventions that can prevent or treat them. In the peripheral nervous system, the most common problem is the failure of nerve conduction, which can be due to different causes including diabetic neuropathy and demyelinating disorders such as multiple sclerosis and amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Neuroscience is the field of science that focuses on the study of the nervous system. A microscopic examination shows that nerves consist primarily of axons, along with different membranes that wrap around them and segregate them into fascicles. The neurons that give rise to nerves do not lie entirely within the nerves themselves. Their cell bodies reside within the brain, spinal cord, or peripheral ganglia. Cells. The nervous system contains two main categories or types of cells, neurons and glial cells. Neuron. At one end of an elongated structure is a branching mass. At the center of this mass is the nucleus, and the branches are dendrites. A thick axon trails away from the mass, ending with further branching, which are labeled as axon terminals. Along the axon are a number of protuberances labeled as myelin sheaths. The nervous system is defined by the presence of a special type of cell, the neuron, sometimes called neuron or nerve cell. Neurons can be distinguished from other cells in a number of ways, but their most fundamental property is that they communicate with other cells via synapses, which are membrane-to-membrane junctions containing molecular machinery that allows rapid transmission of signals, either electrical or chemical. Many types of neuron possess an axon, a protoplasmic protrusion that can extend to distant parts of the body and make thousands of synaptic contacts. Axons typically extend throughout the body in bundles called nerves. Even in the nervous system of a single species such as humans, hundreds of different types of neurons exist, with a wide variety of morphologies and functions. These include sensory neurons that transmute physical stimuli such as light and sound into neural signals, and motor neurons that transmute neural signals into activation of muscles or glands. Glial cells. Glial cells, named from the Greek for glue, are non-neuronal cells that provide support and nutrition, maintain homeostasis, form myelin, and participate in signal transmission in the nervous system. In the human brain, it is estimated that the total number of glia roughly equals the number of neurons, although the proportions vary in different brain areas. Among the most important functions of glial cells are to support neurons and hold them in place, to supply nutrients to neurons, to insulate neurons electrically, to destroy pathogens and remove dead neurons, and to provide guidance cues directing the axons of neurons to their targets. A very important type of glial cell, oligodendrocytes in the central nervous system, and Schwann cells in the peripheral nervous system, generates layers of a fatty substance called myelin that wraps around axons and provides electrical insulation, which allows them to transmit action potentials much more rapidly and efficiently. Neurons and synapses. Major elements in synaptic transmission. An electrochemical wave called an action potential travels along the axon of a neuron. When the wave reaches a synapse, it provokes release of a small amount of neurotransmitter molecules, which bind to chemical receptor molecules in the membrane of the target cell. Most neurons send signals via their axons, although some types are capable of dendrite-to-dendrite communication. Neural signals propagate along an axon in the form of electrochemical waves called action potentials, which produce cell-to-cell signals at points where axon terminals make synaptic contact with other cells. Synapses may be electrical or chemical. Electrical synapses make direct electrical connections between neurons, but chemical synapses are much more common and much more diverse in function. At a chemical synapse, the cell that sends signals is called presynaptic, and the cell that receives signals is called postsynaptic. Both the presynaptic and postsynaptic areas are full of molecular machinery that carries out the signaling process. The presynaptic area contains large numbers of tiny spherical vessels called synaptic vesicles, packed with neurotransmitter chemicals. When the presynaptic terminal is electrically stimulated, an array of molecules embedded in the membrane are activated, and cause the contents of the vesicles to be released into the narrow space between the presynaptic and postsynaptic membranes, called the synaptic cleft. The neurotransmitter then binds to receptors embedded in the postsynaptic membrane, causing them to enter an activated state. Depending on the type of receptor, the resulting effect on the postsynaptic cell may be excitatory, inhibitory, or modulatory in more complex ways. For example, release of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine at a synaptic contact between a motor neuron and a muscle cell induces rapid contraction of the muscle cell. The entire synaptic transmission process takes only a fraction of a millisecond, although the effects on the postsynaptic cell may last much longer. Function. At the most basic level, the function of the nervous system is to send signals from one cell to others, or from one part of the body to others. There are multiple ways that a cell can send signals to other cells. Thus, neural signaling is capable of a much higher level of specificity than hormonal signaling. It is also much faster. The fastest nerve signals travel at speeds that exceed 100 meters per second. This is about nervous system.
So that's generally about our nervous systems. So just some detail here. Yeah, just some detail here. Everything we talked about already. Yeah, PIs. Yeah, PIs, and including the sensory and the motory. And the motory part we separate with SNIs, control skeletal muscles, and the ANIs control internal organs. And the ANIs also separate with another two bunch. One is sympathetic bunch, one is parasympathetic bunch. So basically the same thing we talked about before. So that's the general picture of the nervous system. Then we go to the nervous cells. Yeah, then we go to the nervous cells. So the nervous cells, we have two different kinds of nervous cells. But mainly functionally nervous cells, we call it nervous. Another nervous cell is glia. So nervous perform the mainly function of the nervous systems. That's basically we call it nerve impulse. That's microelectrical transmission follow the nervous cells. Any kind of reactions by the nervous systems, that's the microelectrical reaction in there. And the part of the nervous cells, basically we separate with three parts. First part, similar like other cells, we have cell body. So cell body, including the nucleus, including the cytoplasma, including some small organ there. And then we will have cover, like a membrane, cover all of them. So that's pretty similar. The first day we talking about the nervous cells. That's the first part there. And then, especially for nervous cells, we have different parts. Yeah. We say dendrites. Dendrites is just like the branch of the tree around the nervous cells. So like this one, we have lot of dendrites. We just call that dendrites. Thus still receive the information maybe coming from other nervous cells. So that's the cell body part and the nuclear inside and the small organ inside. Then we have lot of dendrites. So that's the second part of the nervous cells. The third part of nervous cells. So we say these two parts especially for the nervous cells or nerves. So this part we call axon. So that's basically it's pretty long, connected of body part of nervous cells and the long way go to other part of the body. We say the longest one, nervous cells, coming from our lower back area, like L5 and S1 area, directly go to bottom of our feet. Thus, just one nervous cells can reach that longer, like a foam or serratic nervous bunch there. It's not only one cell, certainly, few cells together, but truly one cell can coming from the inside of vertebrae and then go to bottom of the feet. So that's longer part, mainly is the axon.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Here, are you saying that the axon is as long as the body?
Axon, we can have pretty long, and some is shorter. I just gave you an example. The longer one can go from lower back to the bottom of the feet.
And that's just one nerve.
Yeah, longest one. Yeah, longest one.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Some more questions? Yeah. So someone maybe not that longer, but compare with the cells, it is still longer. Yeah, we can say the cell's body usually we need electrical microscope, like at least more than 300 times, or even over 1,000 times. Then we can see the cell body. So even we're talking about some axons, we say the longest axon like this, but some shorter axons, maybe just a few millimeters. But compare with the cell body, they still longer way to go. So that's the longer part. Usually one nervous cells, just one axon. Yeah, usually just one. But they will have lot of dendrites. Yeah, they may have a lot of dendrites, but just one axon mostly. And the ending part of axon, they still have some small part we call axon terminals. So that's the basically structure of the nervous cells. So this kind of structure of the nervous cells, certainly they have their special functions. The body, cell body, like other cells, basically metabolism happens in there. And the dendritic part mainly receive information. And the axon part mainly sending information to other cells, or maybe sending to the muscles, maybe sending to the gland cells. So that's nervous cells, and they have their functions and the different parts. And the covered nervous cells, covered nervous cells, especially cover the axon part. Some of them, yes, some of the axons, they may cover by receptors, many line kind of receptors. They're pretty whole, pretty big cover there. So basically, some protein in there, receptors in there. So this kind of cover, we gave it a name, myelin sheath. And if the axons is covered by receptors in there, by the protein in there, we say this axon is myelinated. So like last picture, you can see a bigger cover here. So axon is the center part here. But above it, they have a lot of cover here. The pretty center part, that cover, we call myelinated, myelinated. And certainly we have some other cells. You can see the nucleus here. Other cells form another cover above the myelinated cells. So that's basically for some of the axons, The other axons, they may don't have special kind of cells in there. They still possible covered by some other cells, but pretty thinner, So basically you're hard to see like a different separate here. So we can compare. This one not myelinated. You just look like a simple axon there. Even they still possible have some cells covered. But this one you can see they have some space, kind of space between cover and not cover area. So that forms some difference. So functionally, what's these two difference? Myelinated axons, we say it is cells and cells cover and have myelin cells in there. So basically they form some electrical insulating between it. So that's basically we still can transmit electrical, we call it a nervous impulse, but truly increase the speed. How they can increase the speed? the transmission for electrical, they can jumping from here to here, and from here to here, from here to here. It's not truly like a non-mediated axons. They like walking here, one by one. But mediated axon, they jumping from here to here, from here to here, from here to here. Certainly, jumping way transmission is much faster than just walking way. So that's the mainly use. We have two different kind of axons, but mediated axons transmission way much faster. And certainly, if axon without this kind of cover, we call it unmediated axon. So axon we have two different kinds. One is mediated, one is unmediated. So
Can I ask,
sure.
on the body, which ones, is there a certain area where you would see myelin, ones with myelin and then other ones without myelin?
Yeah, basically, if they transmit pretty far away, they will mediate it. But it's not a particularly special part of the body because nerve bunch, they connected each other. Yeah, we'll talk about later. Like a network. Yeah. So shorter connection usually is unmediated. Long way connection usually is mediated. So that's we say generally say, we say not absolutely. So generally say body part like the limb part usually is mediated. But inside of brain or spinal cord usually is unmediated. So that's we just generally say, but they are connected to each other.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So picture here, just summarize, yeah, summarize nervous system, including the CNS and the PNS. PNS, we say especially go to motor part. We are not truly put the sensory part here. So mainly is motor part here, including automatically nervous systems and somatic nervous systems. And the automatically nervous systems, including sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Just some summarize. Then we still go back to CNS. So CNS, that's the brain and the spinal cord. So mainly, they have lot of functions. We're talking about they have sensory functions, receive the information. And they also have motor functions, can control the muscles and the brain, but not limited there. Yeah, not limited there. They have more functions, like we know people's brain can thinking, can learning, and can memory, yeah, remember something. And also patients have different kind of emotions. So that's mainly CNS, much more function there. So that's the picture still for CNS. And here is our brain. Yeah, here's brain. In different part of brain, basically we have control different functions. So some mainly area, yes, some mainly area. On the temporal lobe area, yeah, temporal lobe area, basically control our hearing. And in the back area, yeah, or capital lobe area, that's control our visions. So different area control different bodies functions. And more important, control of our motor means muscle contraction and movement. So right between frontal lobe and the parietal lobe. So that's the parietal lobe here. That's the frontal lobe here. That's the frontal part of the brain. That's the back part of the brain. So between these two lobes, we have a big curve there. We call central thoracical. So in front of that, in front of it, we have area. So this area mainly control, bigger here. Yeah, in this area, mainly control the muscles movement, yeah, in this area. We call it a motor center or motor cortex. So cortex still, the medical words means on the superficial way. We are not only using the brain, we also use like on the kidney and adrenal gland, yeah, cortex, superficial part, and the center part, we use medulla. So that's the cortex control the motor. And behind it, yeah, behind it, basically the dark part here. So that's mainly control for the sensory. Other words, all the information we feel finally sending to this part. So that's generally speaking. So motor control in frontal part, sensory control on the posterior part. But if we separate to say, so that's still the same picture. Yeah, they give us more idea about how control of our body, language control, language and reading control. That's the part. And the smelling functions, control part. Speech functions, control part. And the sound problem part. So that's still motor here in frontal part, and the sensory here in posterior part. They just use different words, touching and pressure. That's still sensory, yeah, sensory part. And the tasty, yeah, tasty is small part here. So that still give us some idea, like which part of our brain control what kind of functions. Cerebrum, yeah, that's we say the third part, small part of the brain. Yeah, cerebellum, that control coordination, like our balance function. So balance function in the orifice controlled by the inner ear, but also the information controlled by our brain. That's in the posterior part. So we're especially talking about motor function and the sensory function here. So look at this picture. So this picture basically, that's our brain. That's our brain. So basically the direction is opposite to last picture. So that's the frontal part of the brain. That's the back part of brain. And the same thing here. Yeah, frontal part of brain and the back part of brain. So that's we cut from here, yeah, here, frontal plan. Will learn anatomy, you will learn frontal plan. Basically follow the frontal bone and cut sections. Then we put in here. So that's basically we say anterior part or frontal part. That's our motor control there. And then we cutting still frontal plan, but let it go to posterior part. Go to our sensory part. So that's basically our sensories. Yeah, basically it's the sensory in here. So then we're looking from inside to see. Yeah, from inside to see. That's top of the head or brain. That's the side of head or brain. So then we see the picture. The leg, yeah, the leg in here, including the hip, knee, ankles, and the toes. Top part. The small area is for trunk. Then the shoulders, upper arm, including the vast area in here. Then we have a big hand in here. And under or neck and the face. So what that means? Yeah, what that means? Means different part of the brain control different part of the body. Remember, right now we are in the motor area. Yeah, motor area. So that means it control different part of body movement. Top part of brain control the lower limbs, which is simply remember, top part of brain control the lower limbs. And the middle part of our hand, middle part of brain control the hand and the arms, but mainly for the hand. And the lower part control of our face, including the muscle movement mainly. So we say that's the motor part. And the same thing for the sensory part. Yeah, same thing for the sensory part. Upper, yeah, upper still control the leg. Middle still control the arm and the hand. And the lower still control the face. So certainly, in sensory is the feeling function. It's not truly controlled. It's the feeling function. Yeah. Feel some people, if some people touching your face, you can feel it from this part of the brain. If some people do acupuncture for you, put the needle on your hand, you feel in this part of your brain. Put a needle, acupuncture needle for your leg, you feel it in this part of the brain. So why we put a picture here, so detailed here. Especially clinically for our needling, we truly use it. Yeah, we truly use it. So we have scapular acupuncture. Basically, it's not traditionally Chinese like a needling technique. They follow the anatomy location of the brain, then selected the needle where you put. So we say anterior part, control the movement from the leg up or down to the hand, arm, to the face. And the posterior part control the sensory. Still upper part control the leg. Middle part control the arm. Lower part control the face. So that means if some people like their legs couldn't move, their leg couldn't move, it's caused not by muscles. We talked about it. It's caused by nervous systems. So very needle. So we put needles certainly for the motor part, basically upper 1/5 for the leg. For the leg. And if people have some arm and hand problems, disorder by the nervous systems, we put a needle by the 2/5. If a patient have the face problem, like a deviation of the mouth, deviation of the eyes after windstroke, so we put a needle especially lower part for motor, lower 2/5. So that's clinically we use. And the same thing for the sensory, same thing. Like people losing feeling functions, we still upper 1/5 for the leg, middle 2/5 for the arm and the hand, lower 2/5 for the face. And certainly we have different air control the speech. Basically, we have a lot of air control the speech, And people have ear problems. We go to temporal lobe air. We treat ear problems. And the vision problems will go to occipital ear. So we just follow the anatomy map and treat the patient. So that's we especially talking about different location, control different part of body, and truly we can use. And certainly for Western medicine, certainly for Western medicine, even more commonly used. They can specially find a special area if they losing functions. They may have some trouble or illness there, like some tumor inside the brain. Directly can affect some people's speech functions, and they can use surgery to remove the tumor. So something treatment, we still follow anatomy map there. Then we talking about the nerve band transmissions. So basically, for motor control, we can see the nervous bunch, they go down from the brain, passing the brainstem and passing the middle stem and then go to the medulla part. So basically that's the medulla part. So under the medulla part, we will go to spinal cord. You can see the nerve branch, yeah, for motor control nerve branch in the medulla part, yeah, in the medulla part. So half of them, or even most part, will cross to other side, then go outside of the spinal cord and control different level of the body, muscles movement. Small part, yes, small part still go to the same side, but go to opposite side is the small part, is the mainly part. So that's still talking about our clinical treatment. Like that's the patient's left side, that's the patient's right side here. If patient have left side, half of the body couldn't move, like paralyzed. Whatever arm or leg, yeah. Basically, if we try to treat, we need to mainly treat opposite side, because follow the anatomy, they will go down, mainly go to opposite side. Even they still keep a small bunch go down the same side, but mainly go to opposite side. So that means we mainly treat the opposite side. But if face, yeah, like we talked about, face muscles couldn't control, like a deviation of the mouth, deviation of the eye, so we still go to the same side, because the cross happens during the lower part of the brainstem, during the medulla part, and control the face coming from the cranial nerves. It's directly coming out from the same side. So that's by different location illness, we choose our treatment plan and choice our treatment location. So that's the motor part of brain and the sensory part of brain. And certainly our brain mainly function cerebral part. They have more complicated functions, like people when wake up, when sleep. Generally say it's controlled by the hypothalamus part. We say brainstem separated with 4 parts. Upper part is the thalamus. Connected with the thalamus is the hypothalamus. And some people say that belongs to nervous system. And we also talking about some learning functions, yeah, and the memory function. That's basically in the cerebellum part and the both side connecting part of the brain. So that's just some basic idea here. Our brain working more complicated, yeah, more complicated. We just try to make it easy and try to understanding something. Then we go to our hypothalamus, yeah, hypothalamus. So hypothalamus part is a pretty important part. It controls a lot of things in our CNS, and mainly control for the AIs automatically nervous systems mainly control internal organs function. So hypothalamus receive the sensory information, especially coming from the organs. So that's just means the organs. And also coming from our orifice, smell function, taste function, and the temperature changing, and a lot of things in blood, they changing like blood sugars, blood pressure. That's receive function, we say, belong to sensory. They also can control, that's we say output or control. So we have lot of control centers located in that area. Yeah, both brainstem and also something in the spinal cord. So that's a pretty important part of our brain. Hypothalamus. Yeah. And the passing route, the nervous. So basically from our brain and then go down and then go to the muscles or maybe go to the limbs of the trunk. So that's basically our passing route from our brain and through the spinal and then control all over the body. So that's generally some control in there. So that's the pretty similar like last picture. We say connections of our brain and the passing our brainstem and then go down, go to medulla, and the mainly part go to opposite side and control, and the small part still go down, but still go to the same level, still go to opposite side. So that's the mainly of our brain and control the bodies. The nervous cells and the nervous cells connected to each other. We say neural circulation. So that's basically CNS part. We say they cover billion of the nervous cells. Yeah, nervous, the same meaning nervous cells. And they complicated each other, form the network. Yeah, network. So that's we name it. Yeah, that's we name it. So we have a picture here, show some connections, nervous cells and the nervous cells, they connect to each other. So some of the nervous cells, yes, some of the nervous cells, like one nervous cell here, and then they connected with another nervous cell. That's some of the form. And another two nervous cells there, each of them connected like another two. So that kind of connection, we call it divisions. Yeah, divisions. And another kind of form, yeah, another kind of form. Like here, three different kinds of nervous cells. they connected with one nervous cells. And then from these nervous cells, they send the nervous impulse. So these kind of connected way, we call it convergence. And also sometimes, they make a circle in some way. Like one nervous cells and touching another nervous cells. These nervous cells touching another nervous cells. Some informations, still sending down to other nervous cells, like here. But some informations, they will sending back. They possible sending back from here. They possible sending back from here. Another nervous cells here. They possible sending back from here. And also possible sending from here to here. So that's form a pretty complicated kind of connections. And pretty similar like this picture here. They're pretty similar like picture here. But generally speaking, nervous cells and nervous cells connection is pretty complicated of network, especially inside of our brain. That's why make our brain can do lot of working and pretty complicated working. And even some functions, the scientists still not totally clear how our brain working, but generally say it's connected each other and form the network each other.